Hello, my beautiful YouTube subscribers. Welcome back to my channel and thanks for being here. Today, I have a little bit of a different video for you. This summer, I narrated 2 memoirs by the author Dr. Yassin Hall, and she is a really fascinating woman that I wanted to talk to some more, and so I interviewed her. And a portion of that interview is in this video, and there'll be other videos coming out as well. She grew up in St. Thomas, raised mostly by her maternal grandmother because her mother was schizophrenic and not treated and mostly wandered the streets of St. Thomas for many years, which was obviously a very difficult childhood for the author. And she overcomes that childhood, overcomes being at one point in her life a single mother and homeless with no money to now being the CEO of her own company and a self-made millionaire. So it's a fantastic story. I highly recommend you read the books or listen to the books. Her experience in writing and promoting the book prompted her to become a mental health advocate in her community of St. Thomas and the Virgin Islands, and to start a company called Journey Untold that helps people in mental health crises. So I hope that you'll watch the video and perhaps consider contributing to her organization. And here is part of my interview with Dr. Yassin Hall. Okay, so very good. I'm so happy to be here with Dr. Yassin Hall, who is the CEO of Boss Class LLC and Journey Untold LLC. She's an award-winning, best-selling author, self-made millionaire, certified worldwide mental health advocate, and motivational speaker. And she is the author of Journey Untold, My Mother's Struggle with Mental Illness, published in 2014, and Beyond the Love Curse, Own Your Power, in 2019. And we will have links to both those books in the description below. I believe that'll be down there. Okay, so like I was just saying, I feel like I know you because I had the lovely pleasure of narrating both of your memoirs. And you know, when you narrate a memoir, you have to get pretty far into it. I know you talk a little bit in your first book about how you were inspired to share the Journey Untold story, but I wonder if before you did that, if you ever had seen yourself as an author, or if that was something you were thinking about doing, or if it was just to share the story.
No. So my whole author journey came about because of my cousin. My cousin had seen me grow up around my mother. So it was so strange that she called me one day and said, "You should write a book. You should write a book," because I was inspiring people through my Facebook page.
Yes.
And my first reaction was like, heck no. I'm like, have you seen my life? To me, it wasn't an inspiration. To me, it was like, nobody wants these shoes. And if they try them on, they will throw them at me. So my first reaction was like, girl, get off my phone. This is some nonsense you're talking here. Like, no, click, right? And she ended up writing a piece about me in our local newspaper. And that was the extent of my author journey, right? And when she wrote that piece, everybody was commenting saying, "You should tell your story, you should tell your story." And I was still like, y'all know me? Like, no, I'm not doing that. I was being sued by my family member for contesting a will that my grandmother left. And we were in court and she recorded her in her last days. So imagine me seeing her alive and full and vibrant, and now in a hospital bed, you know, on her deathbed. And I went home and I went to the hotel and I dropped to my knees and I just prayed to God to find some sort of way to comfort me through all this, because it was just so hard to watch her, you know. And something in me ignited, and it was like a anger fire got put into me. And it said, write your book. She wants a book. Here's your book. And they were playing a part of the video where my grandmother was talking about my mother. And not understanding mental illness, she said my mother wasn't a good mother. And I felt the right to prove that in that instance, that you don't know her. I know her. And I felt that the world needed to know that she wasn't a bad mother, that mental illness is real.
Yeah, you had talked a lot about in that first book how it was a difficult community to have a family member with mental illness because it was so misunderstood
Yeah.
and wasn't handled well. I mean, she was untreated for so many years. I wonder if have things changed in the St. Thomas community since then that you've seen, or have they improved?
You know, you never know your purpose until you walk in it.
Mm.
And I used to wonder as a child, why me? Why my mother? Why did it have to be us in this situation? And as an adult, I learned it had to be us. And I didn't know that. And I didn't know that the reason why my mom was the first woman to walk the street and show mental illness in a female had to be my mother. And I didn't know that I had to be her daughter to tell her story to the world. And things have changed since I've written the book, and I went back. That was my first stop on the book tour, was to the Virgin Islands, and I hadn't been back in that capacity ever. I've always gone for a few days and then come back, And for my book tour, my and I talk about her in the book, my ninth grade English teacher, she invited me to come back to my alma mater where all this madness started with my mother. And I had not walked back in that schoolyard gates since the incident, that happened in the book. So when I talk about, felt like I went back in time. I did, because time sat still there. So everything that I had been through in my youth, children were still going through that. And that also ignited a fuel in me, because after I spoke on the stage, she said there's a group of children in the auditorium that's waiting to talk to you after I took the stage presence. And I found that she's like, it's just going to be you. And I didn't understand why she would like kind of thrust me. I'm not a therapist, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Why she kind of thrusted me and these students, and it was like a round chair around. I was in the middle, and I had all these children around me in a circle. It was about 50 kids. And one by one, she would escort me into the room, and I would sit there and listen to these kids' stories. And my heart broke into pieces because these children were me. And there were no services for them. There were no facilities. There was no counseling. I was getting angrier and angrier by the minute, because I felt like, how can I come down here and empower these children to speak their truth and get healing if there's nothing for them to go to? And I remember finishing all the stories and feeling so helpless and devastated that the system is failing us still. The system 33 years later, and the system is still failing us. And I turned to her and I said, I can't tell you these stories. She said, you don't need to. I've already heard them, but you needed to hear them for change, because I can't do it. And when I asked her, I said, well, what are the counselors doing? She said, the counselors are only here for academic. There's no counselors so they tell their stories to the counselors, and unless it's something detrimental that they have to contact the authorities, the children are still stuck in these situations. We're talking children who is living with anxiety, PTSD from hurricane trauma. We're talking children that need a voice. They need to get these emotions that's in them out, and somebody to coach them through positiveness and cope,
Yes.
And I cried the whole flight. That was the longest 3-hour flight of my life. I was crying for every child out there that was broken and wanted to be whole, And it was eating me up inside. And then one day I was passing by, like weeks passed, and I was passing by a playground, and it jolted something in me going here. And I sat on the playground, opened my phone, and did a video of what I saw. And that video went viral. The universe was just like, ta-da! And it got, because of the video went viral, and not only the community went viral around the world that this is happening in the Virgin Islands. Well, it came out that back then the government was not accepting the money for mental health. We're from the US. We're a US territory.
Right.
So we get federal funds to run certain programs. But all these years, nobody had claimed the money for mental health. And when you do that with federal dollars, you're pretty much telling the government that we don't have that problem. What I want is that money to be appropriated now to the people who need it. So it was a start, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And then I was invited back down to come and speak to the other schools, kind of on a rogue because I had to do it myself. But the community donated money, so we could bring people down there and go school to school on every single radio and talk about mental health for the first time. So the first time in history, the word mental health, not crazy, the word mental
Right.
health was finally exposed to our community. And I was able to pass 2 legislative laws as it pertains to the children and the adults living with mental health disorders. So that's why I say it had to be me and it had to be my mom.
Does this, your Journey Untold LLC, did this grow out of this as well, or was
Yes.
this a different idea? Yeah,
No,
tell
I
me
grew
about
from
that.
the book. So I was getting donations, now that, the word was out now that I'm advocating for mental health. Now I became this whole advocate of mental health. Yes. So we help mothers get treatment. So we
Okay.
help, it's like it's just not mothers only. We help children in need, especially in trauma areas. So like in Botswana, I sponsor because of the money that we raised. And that's all the proceeds from the books. So the money from the
Mm,
books and the money from the donation from the community helps me to be on a global reach to help others. So in Botswana, I'm helping a shelter of women who have been in victims of abuse. So
mhm,
we're helping them. And then in the Virgin Islands, we also help that community, especially after hurricanes and stuff. I do what I can with the community, provide a coping mechanisms for the children. I've donated tablets when when COVID, no tablets were available or laptops were available for the kids to do home learning. So I did that, and it's just different projects here in Georgia. I'm really humble. I don't boast about the work that Journey Untold does because it's not something that I do for clouts. It's something that I do that's needed for the community. So it doesn't need to be told except to the people who's accepting them.
Thanks for watching. That's all for today, but there will be more with my interview with Dr. Yassin Hall coming up in the next few weeks. Please do consider contributing to her organization, and if you like this video, please consider subscribing or liking down below, and I'll see you next time.